So today I have the pleasure of speaking to Steve. Steve, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Yeah, so my name's Steve van der Paul. I'm from South Africa, been here for a number of years. Currently the managing director for a company called Chapter Law, which is our head office is based in Redditch. We're a residential conveyancing firm and looking to try and do things a little bit differently. So it's been an exciting journey.
Amazing. And how long have you been with the business and doing the business?
So I've been with the firm since November. I was brought into the firm because I actually come from a manufacturing consultancy background, and what the owner of the business was hoping to do was really bring someone from outside of the business who had a fresh perspective in terms of what could be done and what processes could be realigned and changed. And that's why I was ultimately brought into the business, is to see what we can do differently.
Amazing. And how are you finding it so far?
There's been some highs and lows, if I'm honest. The highs are there's a lot that we can change within the business. There's a lot that we can change within the entire conveyancing process, and the industry itself is ready for a bit of a shake-up. The downside is that there's a lot of bureaucracy and things that happen that are out of our control, and I think the industry is trying hard to try and fight those changes. And until that happens, a lot of what we want to implement is going to take some time.
No, of course, I totally understand. And how's the transition from manufacturing into conveyancing gone?
It's been different, but it's been a welcome challenge. So, manufacturing I did for a number of years, and that has its own challenges. And this has been different because it's a different mindset of people. So, manufacturing guys are pretty rough and ready and ready to go. And these are really smart, intelligent lawyers that, they have a different outlook and a different perspective. And on a personal level, I've had to adjust my management style to work alongside that. So I tell my team, I've been in meetings where we shout and scream at each other, on a shop floor, and we walk out and have a beer and we're best friends. And in this industry, it's not quite as easy as that. So it's been fun.
No, amazing. It sounds so interesting, and it's really good to see that the transitions between industries is not always a blocker. It's an open door.
I couldn't agree more. And I think at the end of the day, there's fundamental principles in every business, and the moment you start to understand what the core values of your business, what you're hoping to achieve, ultimately we cannot do it without people, and that's our number one resource, and that's always my focus. And then starting to look at the processes that help those people along the way. What can we do to make their day easier? What can we do to help their processes to be quicker? I always use the analogy, everybody comes to work every day to do something good and to make a difference, and we've got to give them that opportunity. So I think it doesn't matter which industry that's in.
Perfect, thank you. And then with regards to your current business, what do you think the biggest challenges you face are?
There's a number of challenges. I think the biggest challenge, honestly, is a lot of the processes that are set out by the government in terms of what needs to be done. There's a lot of processes that are archaic, and it's manually driven, and those are the type of things that can really slow us down. And I think as the industry starts to change, and COVID had many negatives, but I think one of the positives was people realizing things like with signatures, we don't need to do that stuff anymore. We can do checks online. We can get these things done and dusted, and that in our industry specifically, I've seen a lot of change where people are now a lot more progressive. People are working from home, and these changes need to happen quickly.
No, of course. Great example. Thank you. Okay. And what would you say is your biggest learning since becoming the managing director?
The biggest learning for me as a managing director in a law firm, I would say ultimately was managing the culture a little differently. So realistically, and I think I did mention earlier that, with the engineering field, guys are very process driven, very output driven, so it's it's an easy industry to motivate because you can look at very quantifiable, very tangible things that are changing. So if you can create more, you can output more, you can do it more profitably, everyone kind of aligns to the same process. Within the conveyancing industry, there's a lot of factors on either side of the transaction which can delay it. So, you know, you can't necessarily manage a person in terms of outputs or pushing them to get a case through quicker or to do it more profitably, of course. But it gives you, there's a challenge around that. And we've got to make sure that the entire team is motivated to, you know, to stay motivated, to keep wanting to do what they're doing and to keep their processes going. So that's been a little bit different in terms of finding the best way to get the maximum amount of output from the team.
No, of course, perfect, thank you. And then going back, so if you, and I do love this question, if you were now talking to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give yourself?
On a personal note, I'd be saying drink more because the hangovers don't last as bad. I think professionally, I think, you know, we run around, and you know, I've got younger brothers and a 19-year-old daughter. We run around trying so hard to focus on what we're going to study and try and rush into getting a degree and getting all that stuff, which is absolutely important. I think what we tend to forget is that business is about people, and there should be a lot more emphasis in understanding people, understanding empathy, and you know, just really making a difference in people's lives. And I think once you understand what it is that makes each individual tick, the rest is really pretty easy. You know, processes you can amend and keep changing, and someone's going to come who's a little bit smarter and make something a little bit different. But ultimately, if the people aren't there to do it, it's not going to make a difference, no matter how clever or how educated you are.
No, perfect. Do you think you would have listened to that?
Probably not. I would have taken the drinking advice though.
Of course you would. And our last question for today is, what inspires you? What inspires you today?
This probably sounds a little cliche, but you know, my biggest inspiration comes from seeing growth, and not within the business. You know, good businesses will always grow organically, but it's seeing a young team develop into something spectacular. It's about, you know, people understanding what it is that people want to do in their lives, and understanding what it is that we can do to help them with their careers, or change their career direction, or, you know, where they can slot within my business, you know, to get the absolute most out of them, but not because of the business, but because it's what's right for them. And that for me, I think, is my biggest daily inspiration, is just watching people blossom, watching people take on new opportunities, watching people that we thought were, you know, not the best employees turn out to be the best just by simply doing what's right for them. And that's my biggest motivation.
No, amazing, thank you. Well, that wraps up for today's session. Great job.